Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds.
Hey, Luke Simons.
Like diamonds. Talking about 3 lures that you should be using and then 3 lures that you should not be using. And this is going to be tailored a little bit more towards not newbies, but beginners and kind of weekend warriors, people who are just a little bit newer to inshore saltwater fishing, in particular, newer to using lures. Because if you recall from last week's episode, we talked all about what does it cost? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but what does it cost to get into inshore saltwater fishing and like how simple it can be? If you're completely brand new, go follow that blueprint. And that's all in the fishing school as well. And that was just, hey, get a cheap rod and reel combo. You can get some at Walmart and just get some shrimp and go to a bridge, either on foot, kayak, boat, whatever. So this is more for people getting into lures. There's a lot of confusion. Like if you go to a big box store, man, which I would say you shouldn't, unless you want to get overwhelmed, but it's overwhelming. There's aisles and aisles of different lures and jig heads and hooks and rigs for it. So we're going to try to simplify it and keep it simple and say the 3 that you need, like 3 that you should be using and 3 that you should not be using. And 2 of them are actually probably all 3 of them might surprise you. So, all right, let's kick it off, Luke. What are the 3 that they should be using right now just to keep it simple?
Yeah, and this is for just keeping the basics. This is the most efficient way, the most efficient arsenal, I should say, that I found to consistently catch fish throughout all regions. I've fished all around Florida, even over in Texas, and in between in many cases. And these lures just flat out work all season long. So they're not always the best, of course, but they will almost always work as long as you're in a good spot. So
and let's repeat that real quick. That's worth repeating because so many people hear, oh, you guys just say the Slam Shady is the best. No, we don't. We say like it works everywhere. That doesn't mean it's always the best. Okay.
Yeah. So for advanced anglers, basically, unless you're an advanced angler, you should not have you shouldn't even be able to fill a small tackle bag of lures. In my opinion, you should only have 2 or really these 3, and we'll share those. And again, it's all about keeping it simple. If you're not catching fish, it's almost always due to the spot you're in, not the lure you're using. Yeah. If anything, the lures...
Dang it, brother. Dang it, brother.
And if anything, the lure's fine, and you're just not in the right depth, right? The fish... If the fish is on the bottom after a cold front or in the heat of the day, they're not going to come up and smack a topwater lure, or even a lure that's going down, 2 feet. But if you're in a shallow flat and you get that 2-foot lure, you're going to be catching a ton of fish. So we'll talk about depth control, but let's go ahead and start with lure number 1. And Joey kind of referenced it. It happens to be a paddle tail in the Slam Shady color, but this is you don't have to get this exact one. But basically, you just get a 3 to 3.5 inch paddle tail. They call them swim baits as well, but this is just a great all-purpose lure. It is shockingly effective. It doesn't require any fancy retrieves. You literally can just do a straight retrieve, and this tail will be moving in the back, and it makes it look like a lifelike lure, lifelike bait fish, and it flat out gets results. This is the lure that I was able to get a ton of underwater strike footage on for big trout, even up to 24 inches. Even with a camera right in front of it, following, basically in front of the lure, big trout were coming up and smacking it in super clear water. So a great lure. If there's bait fish in the area, this lure is going to get some action. And
if you want to keep it simple, go with white, right? Or some sort of pearl. If you can get some gold and silver flakes like we have in that Slam Shady 2.0, that's what we use. If anyone who's fished with us, they will report, yeah, man, those guys... I have 100 pack of these at any given time because that's what I go through and I share more than anything else. It just flat out works.
And just for a little bit of science too, the reason why white is so effective is because what fish see is basically whatever's in between them and the lure. So if the water is tannic, they're going to see a brownish lure because they see that color of the water that is basically reflecting back at them. So if you use a lure like this, it'll automatically match to the color water that you're using. So you don't have to worry about getting 40 colors of one lure. In fact, I recommend just going one. I literally, if I'm fishing for myself or even for tournaments, I just take one color per lure. I found much better results switching lures than switching colors. But again, that's only if you want to get pinpoint results. For just catching fish, this one lure, as long as there's bait fish around, this is really hard to beat.
And this is on what is a 1/8 ounce, quarter ounce?
This is on a quarter ounce jig head. That's just a good all-purpose size. You can basically get fish anywhere from like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water down to about 5-6 feet of water, which is very kind of the norm for redfish, sea trout, and snook. Obviously, if you want to go deeper or shallower, you can use a different rigging option. This is just a soft plastic rigs on all sorts of jig heads plus weighted hooks, so you can really cover the full spectrum. That's why, again, lures like this are very versatile versus like a plug, for example, that you really can't control the depth quite as much, or really much at all in most cases.
And on that specific jig head, what is that? That's the round.
Yeah, this is the Haas Helix round eye. So I like the round shape for swim baits, just because it's just all purpose. It does good with just swimming through the water. Also, if the fish are really finicky, and we show you retrieves for this in the fishing school that Joe mentioned, both rigging and retrieve tips. Sometimes if the fish are finicky, you have to kind of bounce it along the bottom. And so the round shape has an advantage over the others because it can do both, right? It does great bouncing bottom, and it does great swimming. And a bonus is once you get more advanced, it actually skips well up under docks and stuff too. But again, I think for most listeners, this is more about just getting the right type of lure and then matching the depth to where the fish are hitting. And in most cases, that depth is really the depth of the water. Most of the feeding happens on the bottom. Even though the topwater strikes are way more fun, most of the feeding happens on the bottom. And so to maximize results, get your lures down toward the bottom. And again, lures like this can be customized for whichever depth you're fishing, which really is why they're so effective.
All right, cool. So that's number one on lures to use. What's number two?
So number two, sometimes there aren't bait fish in the water. And in those cases, then I go with the default Prawn USA Junior. Same size, 3.5 inches. Size like this works all season long. So yes, sometimes the bigger size is better, but it's very rare when you're in a good spot and this doesn't get results. So again, I want to emphasize, we're not saying that these are the best lures in all cases, but what I'm saying is based on what I've seen, as well as a lot of members that we've taught over the years across all regions, that these two lures, if used in a good spot, will almost always get at least some results. So it's very hard to go skunked if you're using these in a good spot. And again, only go with different ones, in my opinion, once you're catching fish and you want to catch either the biggest ones or you want to catch a little bit more. But again, if these are in a good spot, and I'm using them, I'm just fully confident that they're going to get some good results. And in fact, even just recently, this was what was used down at the Keys, right? Whether it's super clear water down at the Keys, we had one of our, no, I won't say one of our best days of permit fishing, by far our best day ever of permit fishing. We caught 5 permit just around a public bridge that everybody fishes. And we were using these lures in super clear water and getting some crazy good results. So clear water, murky water, everywhere in between, these lures flat out work. So if I'm not seeing bait fish, but I am seeing some feeding birds, I am seeing some signs of life, then I assume that they're feeding on crustaceans, and that's when I switch to the prawn.
Which, if you're listening and not watching, that is a shrimp profile lure, the prawn, and that's at fishstrong.com, and it's the same jig head, right? Looks like the
same exact jig head, right? Keep it simple. You basically get a pack of jig heads and 2 packs of lures, and you've covered the first 2 lures that we've talked about. And as far as this lure too, there's a lot of shrimp lures out there, and I've tested almost all of them. I can't say I've used them all, but I've used a bunch. And there's a lot with like a bunch of fancy antennas sticking out and legs hanging on the bottom. And I actually recommend against those. They look cool to humans. They sell great to humans, but fish don't buy it. Fish do not. It just doesn't look as natural in the water. You want a shrimp lure that glides nice and smooth. Shrimp, when they're not spooked, they just go straight, forward in a slow manner. They're not all jerky. They aren't. The fish aren't looking for the legs moving around. So this has the perfect shrimp profile in a smooth glide. And then when we twitch it and then let it fall back, that's what really triggers the bite in most cases. Again, the fishing school will show you the exact retrieves that gets the most strikes. But even doing a straight retrieve works, or kind of jigging along the bottom, and just like before, right? I like these round eye jig heads because it works great for the swim, just a straight swim, or for doing the twitch retrieve or bouncing off the bottom. So good, again, just a good all-purpose combo for same thing. So in this case, the fact that we don't have the tail on the end, now we can reach a little bit deeper water. So because obviously the drag of the tail doesn't let the lure fall as fast for the paddle tail. So with this one, with the 1/4 ounce jig head, this now will cover, say, like 2 feet of water down to about 8 feet of water, plus or minus. And in that case, with the permit, we're actually in about 12 feet of water, but we just weren't getting down to the bottom. Those permit were feeding higher up in the column. But again, just a seemingly simple lure like this can perform shockingly well as long as you're rigging it properly and retrieving it properly. And again, those tips are all in the fishing school, which we highly recommend going through.
Mm-hmm. And what is number 3 on?
So number 3 is a little bit of a kind of a surprise, and it's really the first lure that we showed, which is with a different rigging option. So again, just to keep it super simple, you don't even need to get 3 different lures. Just get 2 lures.
Oh man, saving money for people already. Here you go.
Yeah, and then just have 2 rigging options. So what I like about this, when I'm fishing, which I'm often fishing shallow grass flats, most of my biggest trout and redfish and snook in many cases too are caught on this type of combo, where it's just a nice paddle tail, right, 3.5 inches, rigged on a weighted hook here, and you can see this point of the hook is flush with the body, and I can even make it really weedless. If I'm going in like around oysters and I need to be super weedless, I can basically skin hook the point, and now I can cover the 2.5 feet of water and shallower extremely well while being weedless. When the fish hits it, it'll expose the point, still has a good hookup ratio. But yeah, fishing shallow water, this combo is extremely hard to beat. Sight fishing or just blind casting, this thing flat out works.
And that's the Slam Shady 2.0 paddle tail on a Haas Helix, what, 1/8 on that one?
Yeah, this is a 3. Yeah, the 3/0 size hook is perfect. And the 1/8 is a good all-purpose for a weighted hook, right? And once you get more advanced, we have a 1/16 and a 3/16, but the 1/8 is really hard to beat. It's a good all-purpose, and as a bonus, it actually rigs perfectly with the Prawn Juniors as well. So with these 2 packs of lures and 2 packs of rigging hooks, you can have a bait fish imitation for shallow, bait fish imitation for deeper water, and then the same thing, right? You can have the prawn on the weighted hook for the shallows, and then the prawn on the jig head for the deeper water. So literally with 2 lures and 2 rigging items, you can basically cover like 95% of the situations you'll face on the water, which is why, again, this is the best, in my opinion, the best arsenal for inshore fishermen that I've ever tested. And you might be asking, hey, why don't you use Slam Shady for the shrimp? I've used that too, and it works great. I just personally have more trust in natural for the shrimp. That way, I'm not dialed in to having just one color. But yes, we do have these in Slam Shady, and they work great. I've just gone with natural, and that's where my trust is. So
yeah,
again, what we found, in case you've seen of our lure contest, I've done a lot of contests on color, and it's very rare when color had a very big difference. So it's a lot of it just comes down to confidence. You can ask 10 different people their favorite color, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. And it's really going to come down to what they use more often than not. Because doing head-to-head tests, where they do 3 casts with one, 3 casts with the other, and I keep doing that for hours at a time. Over time, the actual results are surprisingly close. Even when doing like a light versus a totally dark, like total opposites, it's very rare where there's that much of difference.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, hey, then why do you guys sell so many other colors in your store? We got 50,000 plus members, and we're always asking for new stuff, mostly because of confidence of what Luke just said. Like, we fish with guys they swear by chartreuse tail, and they catch fish with the chartreuse tail, and I'll go switch to it. I don't have the confidence in it, and I don't catch anything. Right, they're right next to me catching them. I go back to Slam Shady, and I'm catching them again. So it's almost unexplainable, but so much of that is just that confidence.
Yeah, and a majority of them, there have been tests with various fish, and and as far as what they respond to, whether it's action, sight, or smell, or actually, sorry, action, vibration, and smell. So visual, feeling, or smelling, and it's just very rare that the actual visual is the best. So the color's not it. It's really motion. Motion's been number one in most cases. Smell, and then the color spectrum, as far as importance, is very far down the importance level. So, and we mentioned too, where these colors, again, we're not saying they're the best in all conditions, in all situations. There are going to be time where different colors or different lures are going to catch more fish. It's just that these are just the tried, true, tested, 100% confidence that if I'm using these lures and I have them rigged at the right depth for what the water's showing, then I have full confidence that I'm going to get at least something. And then for the more advanced anglers who really want to, again, go for just the upper slot redfish, like for tournament anglers, that's when you need to start getting a bunch more lures, because that's when you're going to need to really fine tune exactly what those bigger fish are dialed into.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go to the 3 lures to not use, especially if you are newer to inshore saltwater fishing.
Yeah. So again, there's really any of them other than these was what I would say for a newbie. Just to keep it simple, get really good at just these couple lures I talked about, and it's gonna help make the growth into lures and catching fish on lures much easier. But as far as what not to use, I'll start with one of ours, and so top water. So for a newbie who's kind of struggling with fishing, you probably shouldn't use top waters yet. Yes, this is more fun. This is my favorite, especially like in the fall season. It is an absolute blast, and it works extremely well for those who are good at using it and are really good about picking spots. But it's very situational. It's in many cases just a very short window of time during the day. And again, it does require more skill on using. You have to actually do a lot of effort to make it look good. So although this thing does list as one of our new colors, it does look nice and pretty, like literally just like a mullet. Although I'm very proud of it. This thing looks awesome. If I was going to only have one lure that I could fish the rest of my life, it would absolutely be this one. Yeah. Compared to this other one that's way more expensive and looks much nicer. This 2.0 Slam Shady on a jig head or a weighted hook is just flat out extremely productive usually across the entire day, and again across all seasons. Yep. So, and even with the situation, even with top water, like this is just us being candid, right? It's part of what we do here at Salt Strong with the most trusted saltwater fishing community. I don't think you even need the top water. If you do get into top water, it looks like the mullet. I almost think that's more for fishermen than fish, right? Because an old school just bone or a Slam Shady looking like a top water has worked for a long, 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 long time. But there are people that just like, you don't need a certain rod color. The fish don't care. I'm pretty sure what color your rod is. There are people that have to have this certain color braid and rod. So we do have it. If you're wondering why do they even have it, because we've made fun of it before. Yeah, it might catch more fishermen than fish in terms of the actual design. You don't have to have it. It does look awesome. Just being candid, I will probably still keep buying the old Moonwalker and Slam Shady, but that doesn't mean you have to. You can buy whatever the heck you want. Yeah. Go with what you're confident in.
Yeah.
So number 2, and this isn't a dig at this lure at all. It's just any lure that's really expensive. Like this, I think was like $18 to $20 range for one lure. And that's just more than you need to pay if you're new and trying to get into this. This is an extremely good lure for going after like big snook, where it's designed to where the hook pulls out. So really, really cool niche lure that is awesome for the advanced angler going after specific species. But again, not something that somebody new should be fishing, because this could result, right? This is an exposed hook. And for somebody new who casts a little bit closer than you should to the rocks, or you let it sink a little bit too far and gets down the bottom, now you're down $20 versus this, right? This combo, if you lose one of these, like this comes in a 7-pack, this comes in a 3-pack. So this actual combo of the 2.0 with the jig head is maybe like, I don't know, 75 cents or something, or $1. Whatever, I haven't done the math, but whatever the amount is, it's way less than $18. So it hurts much less when you lose the soft plastic.
And it kind of And it kind of ties in with what I said earlier. I'll put in like some of the live targets, not picking on live target in particular, but those are also very realistic looking lures, and they're really expensive lures. I'm sure they catch fish just like spool tech can, but it's very, very specialized, and you just flat out don't need it.
Yep.
Yep.
And so third, again, this is another it's really a money thing. These lures work great. This is the company that makes really nice soft plastics. They have a niche where if you're in an area with a lot of big fish, they're great. They flat out get strikes, but they're like over $1. They're probably like $2 a piece for a soft plastic. That if you're fishing areas where I fish a lot of areas with seagrass, there's puffer fish that'll basically bite through any lure that's not rock hard. And so it's really painful when you have one cast and a stinking puffer fish will come bite it in half. So again, for that reason, I just don't recommend newbies who are just trying to get some action to go out and spend and pay for these expensive lures.
Many of those are $3 a pop, $9 for a 3-pack.
Yeah, maybe they are. Yeah, again, I haven't done the math on it, but it's just way more than I think. Than I think is needed for getting action. Again, these and those are pretty big and bulky, so you're gonna weed out a lot of fish. Whereas these 3 to 3.5 inch smaller lures, thinner profile, it just increases the odds that you're going to get action. And basically, what we're doing this is really just making sure that when you go out fishing, you're not going to come home and have to tell the spouse or a coworker or whatever that you got skunked. Right? We do not want that to happen. So a smaller size lure that has good action is going to get results as long as you're in a good spot. You'll at least be catching a bunch of ladyfish, a bunch of the smaller sea trout, smaller reds can easily suck that down. And of course, the bigger reds, I've caught overslot snook and redfish on these little lures all the time. Even, again, permit, I've caught keeper cobia. I've caught a bunch of big triple tail with this little profile. This is that prawn. So the good thing about these lures is that they basically will catch whatever's in the area. Right. Pretty much all predators eat bait fish or shrimp. And when you have at least one lure that you trust for each scenario, bait fish or shrimp, and you're able to cover the shallow water and the deeper water, you're going to be getting a lot of action with a very small arsenal of lures.
Yep.
So I just went from having like 2 tackle bags that I had of all my gear. And now I have one small tackle bag, and that covers my lures and my camera equipment. So I've gone smaller on my tackle bag, and half of it isn't even for fishing. So simpler is better is what I eventually learned after spending a ton of money on lures. So we just wanted to emphasize that in this lesson to make sure that you don't have a whole closet full of lures that are just collecting dust like I do.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys want more of this, we have a fishing school. As Luke mentioned, all Insider members get full limited access to it. That's just one of the many perks of being an Insider member, on top of saving 20 to even 40, 50% off all of your tackle in our store for as long as you're a member. We have an amazing community. We have coaching, all kinds of new content going up every single month to help you get from point A to point B, regardless if you're a beginner and trying to be a more intermediate or intermediate going to advanced, and even some really cool stuff for advanced anglers too. But we've got a ton of members who have gone from beginners to now advanced to the point they're winning money in tournaments with some of these same simple lures. We have a couple that are actually full-time guides who have literally been able to quit their jobs and become a full-time fishing guide, all from starting in this Insider Club. And so it is proof it works. That's why we got with 60,000 members, and man, a lot of really, really cool things coming here in 2025 for our members. So get in. That's all at saltwater.com. And if you want to see the fishing school and get a little taste of that, I believe we still have a free version open. You just got to opt in for it and give us your email. So that way you can communicate. It's interactive. And it's saltstrong.com/school. So saltstrong.com/school. You can go there and opt in to get some free access to that.
Yeah, and if you want to pick these lures up, they're at fishstrong.com. That's our online tackle store. And again, I mentioned they come in 7-packs. So here's the 2.0, 7 of those. The Prawn USA Juniors, 7 of those. And then the jig heads are in there as well, right? And we even have a rigging chart, just so in case you're fishing some different depths, like deeper water. We have a rigging chart that'll make sure that you have the right rigging options for whatever depths waters you're fishing. And so anybody can get these, right? These aren't just for members, although members do save at least 20% on all this tackle. So if you are either serious now or you think you're going to get serious into fishing, I highly recommend just trying out the school. You have a guarantee that you're catching more fish, and that way you can save money on this tackle, along with getting all these different resources that members have for being a member.
That's it. Remember. All right, guys, appreciate you big time. Stay tuned for the next podcast, and make sure you go to saltwater.com, join us in the club, get access to the fishing school, and buy some of that Tackle Simplify Yo gear. Appreciate y'all, and talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. Find us on the water if there was a way. Said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.